Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Better Car Washing Everywhere. This is the podcast for car wash professionals and, of course, the car wash curious. Today, we're going to dive deeper into a topic we've been talking about a lot lately, and that is really centered on staffing. And again, I say this a lot, but you could listen to me spout off about this quite a bit, but I'm not going to do that to you. We're going to bring in a couple of people who are seeing this and living this every single day. We're bringing in Jordan O'Day and Fransua Perez from Wash Rescue. Guys, welcome.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so this is going to be fun because I have been talking a lot about staffing, and it seems like that's like perpetual. Like it doesn't go away. Everybody's always wanting to know about, how do I get the best people? How do I need to develop my people? How do I know if I have enough people? How do I build this bench? So we're going to get into that. But before we go all there, can you guys just kind of give us a little bit of the background of where you all have come up in this industry? Jordan, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I re-entered the car wash space in my adult career in 2019. I was employee number one at Johnny Clean Car Wash in Jacksonville, Florida, and helped kind of flourish that brand. Worked a little bit with El Car Wash down in South Florida, as well as DRB as the Southeastern Regional Sales Manager. So we've been kind of touching a little bit of everything over the last 7 years, and just excited to share.
Well, and a super fun time to be kind of coming up in this industry, right? Coming up as everything completely changes. So that's fun.
Front row and
Fransua,
center.
how about you? Yeah.
So actually, funny enough, coming into the car wash space a few years ago, Jordan hired me on to help him build a car wash. I didn't know anything about it. Had no clue, and we were there from a whole build and built it up, opened a store, and then we ended up opening multiple stores, and that's how I got my start in the space and been in it for a few years now. I've seen just about everything, so it's been fun.
Yeah. There's some stuff, and we're gonna unpack one of those problems here. I want to get into it. Folks listening at home, if you want to know what the heck Wash Rescue does, it's a little bit of everything, right? So they're going to help you with lots of different problems, but we, as is core to this program, we're not going to talk specifically about Wash Rescue. What we're going to do is have transparent conversations with you about problems we're seeing and how they're being solved with folks. So just to set the stage here, let's talk a little bit more about staffing. I want to know, there's this debate around how many people do I really need to run my car wash, whether that's an express or a flex or a full serve, and what's the value really of those people. So in your mind, let's just think kind of big picture. How do you assess the right amount of staff? Like, what are you looking at when you're like, hey, yeah, you should have 5, or you need a manager and you need 5 people here and this and this. How do you assess that?
I'll take
Go
it away.
for it, Francois.
Yeah, I'll jump into it. First thing is, what type of wash are we running? Is it an express? Is it a full serve? Is it a flex serve? So for me, my background is a lot of express exterior only. And so when I'm looking at that, I think a good number is, you want to understand how many people you need to run a single shift. For me, that number's 4 to really be efficient. And you can build on that as you get busier. Now, to get an entire staff and say fully staffed, that number usually sits between, I would say, 13 to 20 employees, just depending on everything. 20 is a little much for it, but that's a pretty good number that gets you there, in total. Jordan, you want to tack on?
Yeah, it's just, there's so many different variables, Matt, as to how you can dissect this thing. So, we're doing a couple new store openings for clients currently, and we're coming up with some of the staffing templates because that kind of dictates the hiring template and game plan, right? So we'll with an already existing site, we can take how many cars they're doing per hour. We can break that down into different categories. So there's cars per man hour. You can do details per hour, full serves per man hour, and we have different metrics. For details per man hour, we typically like to see around a 1.1 to 1.2 details per hour. Full service generally averages right around 2.2 to 2.7 cars per hour. But, it can really start to become dynamic when you factor in full serve, flex serve, detail. Some of these guys are doing oil out in the space. So it can really range heavily all over the spectrum based on what kind of operation they're running. So there's a lot of data tackling on the front end that has to be done.
Is there something that's kind of popped to the top for you in terms of a place that we often miss, right? Like, what's the biggest sort of shortcoming when it comes to not having enough people? Like, what are people missing?
I gotcha. Yeah. What are they missing in terms of? Are you saying what's the effect of not having enough people? Is that what you're asking?
Well, and like what if I'm running my wash, and I think I've got enough people, but I'm really like too short. Like, what's causing that for me? Like, what are my blind spots? What I need to be looking at? How do I identify if I need more people?
Gotcha. Yeah. So you'll see it affects the entire business. So you'll see your capture rates will start dropping, because you might not have somebody out there if you're low staffed. Your car counts eventually will start going down. You're going to have more complaints, weirdly enough, because if you don't have enough people handling customers, for example, if you have a site that's running 2 people and they're severely understaffed, you've got a manager and one other employee. Well, what's going to happen when somebody has an issue and they need a manager? That manager's stepping away. And now, guess what? That other employee, they're loading cars and there's no one manning the pay stations. Your capture rate immediately is dropping, right? Because the kiosk is never going to sell a membership as well as a person will. So you'll start seeing it there, number one, first and foremost. And actually, the lower your staffing gets, the worse your turnover is going to be. Because now you're relying more and more on a smaller and smaller group of people that have to pick up the slack. That increases burnout. That's some of the most immediate things that people will notice running a wash that's understaffed.
One of the things I think came up early on for me was as I would visit washes and see folks that maybe were having some opportunities, right, when it came to hiring a few more people. There was a lot of people trying to do kind of splitting responsibilities, right? So you'd have your loader and they might be running that loader back and forth between things, but that's not really terribly efficient, right? And that's not really helping you optimize throughput in what you're trying to do. So it's like if you're in a situation where you don't have enough people to dedicate one person to every core business function that you're trying to do that day, you're probably a little bit short.
Agreed 100%.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Couldn't agree more. Hey, quick, just to flesh out on that a little bit, something that we like to say in the business and something we brought from the restaurant space is because in these frontline retail worker positions, especially in this industry, the average shelf life of a team member is around 9 months. So we like to call it was ABR, always be recruiting. And we kind of take some of that Bill Belichick mindset where we have a weekly meeting with our management team, and then we sit down and we highlight the top 3 performers and the bottom 3 performers. And then regardless if we are fully staffed, whatever that number may be, 12, 17, 42, I'm constantly looking for ways to either improve those candidates or, hey, I'm going to look for another all-star on the street. I never stop recruiting. So the topic of being fully staffed is almost a catch-22 because in our eyes, you're never really there. So it's always a living, breathing entity, you and your team.
Yeah, well, because it starts to go deeper, right? Like, yeah, great. I need 20 people to run this site. Perfect. I have 20 people. Crap, 3 left. now I have 17 people, and now I'm short again. Dang it. So yeah, you got to have that bench kind of rolling. And I'm a big fan of people having a few more people than they really need, right? Like have a little bit of a bench built up there because that's going to open up opportunities for you that you wouldn't have otherwise. And it'll keep you from getting in those spaces where you're chasing employees. Because guess what happens then? Then you're over there in the corner going, man, nobody wants to work. I can't find good people. Why can't I hire anybody? It's because you're chasing, right? You're not strategic and intentional with your recruitment efforts. So you're just chasing the problem. So,
yeah, we like
absolutely.
to, we always aimed to hire one person per month and then onboard, train them, and keep that going. So there's always a flow of people coming in, and you stay ahead of it because again, the worst time to be sitting there going, I don't have any employees. It's, you haven't hired for 6 months, and then you've lost 3 in a row all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And now you're scrambling. That's not a good time. You want to be ahead of it. So I agree with you 100%.
Where does this, when you think about challenges that we have in the car wash space, where does this kind of staffing piece stack up for you in the pecking order? Like, how big of a challenge is this for people?
It's
number one.
Yeah.
Number one, Jordan says.
I agree.
It's number one by far, and it's not just the car wash space; it's all retail space. It's getting increasingly challenging to staff appropriately and to compensate fairly, to find the right people who are engaged and willing to grow with you. So, everything in the express exterior world, for example, you only have a finite amount of time within 2 minutes to make an impression on the guest. So if they don't stop and talk to somebody after their wash, all they did was get maybe a high five and a smile, hopefully from the loader. They had a 90-second, 2-minute conversation, hopefully with a team member at the front, and then they're gone. So unless you have people who are really, you're staffed, you're trained, they're coached, they're people in the right positions, this whole thing can fall apart real quick. In this car wash space, it's a game of inches. And if one thing starts to fall apart, and hey, at the end of the day, people run this whole thing, from the customers to the team members to the vendors, etc.
Agreed. I had nothing different on that one. I love how you said that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I always say that all of the great car wash organizations that I've had the opportunity to speak with, there's always one common thread, and it's that they prioritize people over everything else, right? Because everything else will fall into place. If you have good people and you're treating them well and you're bringing them along, you're going to be able to have good operations. You're going to be able to put out a good product. You're going to be able to have good customer service. All of those things line up if you get the right people, to steal a very popular phrase, get the right people on the bus, right?
Hey, culture takes years to build, weeks, months, years, and it takes days to destroy. And oftentimes you'll see after these new store openings in all industries, you start off with a really strong core team. The balloons are popped. We have the grand opening celebration. You have this momentum. 6 months go by, you blink, and you have an entirely different team. You have an entirely different staff. We're making knee-jerk hirings, and the entire culture just and it's so hard to pick that back up and to keep that magic in a bottle that you get from a new store opening. So people, by far, number one, the most important thing of this whole equation.
And listen, you'll know you're doing it right when the average time of a team member with you is going up, right? Because Jordan mentioned, 9 months is kind of the average for frontline retail, right? So if your average team member has been with you for more than 9 months, let's say over a year and a half, you're doing something right because people want to be there. They want to stay working there.
When you guys go into washes, are owners and operators, are they tracking that? Or is this like new for them as you introduce this? Like, hey, how long is your average employee here? Is that something that's being tracked? So
it's not. I think a lot of these smaller operators are not looking at that type of stuff. And when we're telling them, I'll ask someone, hey, how long has your longest running person been here? And that kind of stumps them. How long has that person been here? They don't know. And so that can be a little telling about, their culture, that they're not focusing on how long people are sticking around.
We've seen it at both extremes, Matt, and more of the mom and pop onesie twosie township type of roles where it's either, they've been with me 15 years, I love them. And then we look at the stats and they're severely underperforming, but there's a sense of loyalty there. Or to Francois's point, it's just a churn mill where they can't find anybody. And, oftentimes there's a little bit of mirror reflection that should be happening there at that moment. So there's a fine line, but we've seen a good swing at both extremes.
All right. So let's say you walk into a wash and they don't have enough people and they're having a hard time kind of getting people to join up, right, and stay around. What are you telling operators to do? Like, what's the big thing? What do I need to work on?
So at the end of the day, it really comes down to the leadership, right? So, some of the tricks that we used to use is, hey, we had a 1v1 or one-on-one with every single team member just to talk about how are they doing? How are things at work? Maybe highlight some of the positives that they're doing. Maybe, share an opportunity through the compliment sandwich, right? When it comes to staffing, as soon as you start to fall behind and you have to start calling people up on their days off, that, again, erodes culture. Compensation plans sometimes are not quite in line with some other industry standards. So we like to look at commission plans, pay rates, pay scales, and truth be told, the operator's performance from a marketing, operations, a product perspective can directly impact their team members' bottom line performance in their pocketbooks. So we find that the most success comes from having open, transparent conversations with the team members. Hey, God forbid they come up on their first day and they have a little easel that says, hey, welcome to the team, Matt. So excited to have you on board. Those are the little special touches that let people know or remind them that you care. I hope everyone out there does. And, it's not one It's not a one size fits all here, man. In my opinion, you got to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I agree. And to add on to that, you have to identify why those people are leaving in the first place, why they can't hold on to any staff, then offer the solutions for them. And a lot of people just don't know where to even look, right? Some people say, "Oh, we just throw an open sign or a now hiring sign on the building, and that's hiring for them." And so we have to walk them through, "Hey, you got to put it on job boards. Why don't you offer a referral bonus for your existing team members, your good team members? Say, hey, do you know any people like you that want to work here?" Right? Then you got to start ramping that up. Are you going to local universities, colleges, right? That's where you're going to start looking for people and just go out there. Like, you have to put an effort. Honestly, you got to work harder when you're low on staffing. The manager should be.
Well, Matt, we used to go undercover at local colleges and surrounding these car washes, and I'd throw in a polo and a backpack, and I'd be handing out, "Hey, anybody looking for work like you?" I'd staple in posters. I promise you, that's what we did, because we had to get creative and you had to be proactive. Just posting a job online is not good enough anymore.
One of the things that you mentioned that I think is really kind of important is that you have to think about your employee experience, right? We in this industry, right? We turned into this subscription model for a lot of folks, and that meant we had to change how we thought about our customers, and we had to really focus and be intentional about creating an amazing customer experience. Sometimes we have a hard thing doing more than one thing at a time. So we're doing great. We're figuring that out. All the data shows that members of car washes really enjoy their membership overall. The satisfaction's, I think it's like 76% or higher in terms of people who are satisfied with the membership. But we forgot about the employees in the whole thing. We just totally forgot about it. We're like, oh, it just work. They work for me. They just work for me. But I think, Jordan, what you said about people want to, they want to be seen. They want to matter, right? They want to know they're having an impact. And if you can do those little things that make a difference in the employee experience, that's going to help you big time, because ultimately what you want to do is match up that customer experience and that employee experience to create your brand and to create your culture. And then that's the organization you build, right?
Absolutely. It's just like when it comes to driving retail traffic or marketing or Costco free samples. Our motto is you got to lay it down before you pick it up. And the same thing goes with your team members. If you're not having a real orientation, a real site tour, a real onboarding process, a little, "Hey, welcome to the team" note, those are the investment. You're investing in your team members at that point, and they know that. They can feel that, and they appreciate that. And we've noticed that, tenure does last substantially longer. And like Fransua said, on the tail end, if you are having people leave, hey, exit interviews are a great way to get in touch with those people. We would do quarterly surveys through things like SurveyMonkey and digital surveys, where we would ask the team anonymously, "Hey, we want your feedback." So it was important to us to have that they had a voice too, and that they felt they were a part of it.
Yeah, one thing I would do when we had monthly team meetings, I print out all the Google reviews, Yelp reviews, anywhere somebody was leaving a review. And if somebody was name dropped in there, I would talk about it, and I would showcase and say, "Look, Marco took care of this person. They loved you so much and they wanted to talk to you." And that became a point of pride for these guys. And going back to what Jordan said about doing an orientation, a real orientation, that's not just, "Hey, here's your stuff, here's your schedule, see you later." Sitting down with them, knowing what they're about, introducing them to your culture. For the sites that I was running, it was a point of pride that these guys could say, "Hey, we're the best car wash in this area. We're absolutely the best, no doubt about it." And the team members knew how it worked and could explain that to a customer proudly. And that helped build the culture because they were proud of where they worked.
Well, and the other piece about, I've realized that not everybody wants to grow and scale, right? But ultimately, the only way you're ever going to go from one location to two, or two locations to five, or 5 to 10, or 10 to 50, is if you approach this whole staffing challenge with growth in mind, right? So you have to have, again, we talked about the bench. You have to have more people in your hopper, but you also have to be creating the opportunities for those people. So it's not enough to just have them sitting there and say, one day we're going to have something for you. Don't you worry about it. They need to feel that and see the motion. So, I think it comes down to, even if you just want to be 1, 2, 3 car washes, you have got to overhire, right? Have the bench, build the roadmaps for people so they can see that there's upward possibilities and potential, because that's going to just keep those people engaged and make them feel like they're part of something that's a little bit more than, just coming to work every day.
Yeah.
Having that path of progression is critical. It's always great to have in our orientation or our onboarding packets. We would have, hey, this is where you start as a team member. This is what happens if you do X, Y, and Z. You can qualify for a shift leader position, so on and so forth. So they can see that there's a real opportunity. Throughout the years, we've ran into a lot of younger adults and older adults, quite frankly, who didn't see that the greater opportunity in the car wash space. Probably kind of like Fransua and myself at one point. And there is a real career to be made here, and it's a niche business, and it's something we're passionate about. It's a lot of fun. And most of the people that we do run into who do enjoy life and enjoy working a little bit, hey, they have a lot of fun and find a lot of success in this space.
Yeah, I'll share with you really quick, Matt. We had a lot of people in hired positions, whether it was store managers, general managers, supervisors, assistants, regionals, all came from internal. They were all internal hires, just got promoted and went through it. One of the biggest stories that I shared with new hires coming in, they would ask me, hey, how long does it take to become a general manager? Is that even possible? And I would say, absolutely. There was a general manager at that time, was a part-time team member going to school. And within a few years had worked his way up and was running his own site. Doing fantastic. And he was like my shining example. Look, he can do it, so can you.
Yeah, man, I love it when organizations have the opportunity to change lives. And I think there is real opportunity for folks in this industry to give people opportunities that maybe they didn't think they were going to get, like give them the shot that they needed.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, you were talking about, bringing in those internal folks, right? Developing them up through the ranks. I love that. I love that a lot. But talk to me a little bit about, when should I be bringing in external? Like what's the value in having external folks from, other industries or other spaces come in and join my team?
So I can speak to that a little bit. It's if you have people in your team that you've identified potential in, but they're not quite there yet, it can sometimes be more detrimental to put them in a position where they're going to fail, as opposed to, keeping them where at and keep developing them to get to that point, right? So in that position, instead of losing one person, that position you're originally trying to fill, you end up losing two. And you lose someone that could have been with you long term just because they weren't ready yet. That's one of the times where I'd bring in an outside hire.
No, I hit the nail on the head there, Fransua. I mean, as important it is from a culture perspective to show that there's upward mobility and growth potential for all of the team members to do different things and try different stuff. It can really hurt you bringing somebody from the outside, especially if you had some people teed up and jockeying for a position. But, there's nothing worse than putting a C player in any role, or a D or F player. So, at a certain point, to Fransua, what he was saying, hey, you got to know who you got. You got to know your award board. That's why those monthly meetings are critical. Identify those people who have the talent, the passion, the can do, want to do, not the don't know, don't care crowd. But sometimes you got to bring in those heavy hitters. And the biggest downside I've seen with everyone in the car wash space has been there is this adamant attitude that they have to hire someone with car washing experience. Last time I checked, we have a tunnel that does that. We have an MCC, we have controls, we have conveyor and brushes. We're hiring for attitude, and we're teaching them the skills. We can teach people how to load cars. We can teach people how to sell plans, but I can't teach people to be friendly and smile. So, what we found a lot in the space is people coming from the restaurant industry especially tend to do exceedingly well because there's hospitality's already in there, conflict resolution, sense of urgency, speed, and all that good stuff. And, hey, we can teach them how to turn a wrench. I learned.
Yeah, I'll add on to that too. So it got to a point, Matt, where sometimes having car wash experience on a resume could almost be a bad thing. Not for everyone. I definitely had some incredible people from the car wash space, but sometimes they come with bad habits. Not always. but sometimes they do, and that could be a negative thing against them in an interview. And then you find that out. You see what kind of person they are when you talk to them, but it's something to consider.
Well, and I think, going back to this concept that, a lot of the business today is subscription, and that has changed the skill sets that are required, right? So great. Maybe you do have car wash experience, but it's from 15 years ago and it was a different space, right? Correct. Instead, it's like, can you smile? Can you be friendly? Can you carry on a conversation? And can you make people feel good? Like, can you make people feel welcome when they get on the lot? And like, are you up for that conversation? That's the skill set. So I love like looking at, you guys were talking about quick serve restaurants, anything where there's service in that space, where they're customer facing. Those are the spaces to go look for top talent. I mean, that's gonna get you where you want to be. I think you can look. There's still the need for the people who, frankly, don't need to be talking to the customers, and that's fine. They work on the stuff that they do best, and we keep them happy that way, and we don't have to worry about getting a negative Google review because we put the wrong person out front trying to sell an unlimited plan. That's okay. I'm all about best use of best resources. Get people doing most of what they're best at.
We see this. So I like to call it plan fatigue. So oftentimes when a cashier is in the cashier spot too long, it just gets redundant. It gets repetitive and old. And to kind of curvature that, we have a lot of operators who are trying to do this hybrid model, which in certain markets, certain situations, certain facilities works great, where they can kind of bebop and roll between vacuums and loader, full serve and cashier. But the reality is that, we're always looking for aces in places. And there's a reason why there's the back of house staff has a certain cognitive test and the front of house staff has a different one. You don't see Tom Brady running the ball, and you don't see Randy Moss throwing passes. So to a certain extent, there's a little bit of, putting the right people in the right places. We'll place job ads out just for car wash associate. They come in wanting to do sales, Matt. Guess what? You're in the tunnel because just their personality didn't fit. They weren't outgoing, they weren't friendly, or vice versa. We put them in the sales role. They don't even know where they're going, but we'll figure it out,
And I'll give you an example. One of the general managers that I ended up hiring, and he went through the ranks as well. This is a different person who I mentioned earlier. Was not a great seller, but was a great leader. Could not do sales very well, understood the process, but was great at everything else and could get a team underneath him that could sell. And that was a valuable skill set. So instead of just throwing him out the window, hey, you can't sell, see you later, I recognized that he was good at that and he could bring that team. And everyone performed better when he was on shift, despite him not having the best numbers. So yeah, you find that value.
So I want to talk. Yeah, I mean, so we're gonna go a little deeper on that because I want to know. How do you spot that? Like because right, like how many times have you been in a situation where it's like, well, this individual sells a ton of memberships. They're awesome. Let's promote them. Let's make them a manager. Crap, they are a really bad manager. So how do you kind of work around that? How do you prevent getting into those situations? What should we be doing as operators?
Go for it, French. This is a good one for you.
I like it.
Yeah, this is a good one, Matt.
So we used to say be the obvious choice for the, if it's the next position, be the obvious choice for it. So you had to already be acting like that person so that it made the most sense to now shift you into that position. So if that was a team member trying to become a lead or a supervisor or a manager, whatever you want to call it, you had to already be showing that you could do that and not just learn how to do it once you've gotten the position. So I'll use this person as an example. When, let's say, a pit night was coming in, right? I know how much the car wash industry loves to get in there and do a pit night. He was someone that didn't make it a terrible thing and would actually go to each of his team members and come up with a game plan. Mind you, he was just a team member and said, okay, I need you to take this portion of the pit. You're taking that portion of the pit. You're in vacuums. I'm going to help out, jump in the pit and do that. He was organizing his team, executing on that. And that was just how he carried every single shift he had. He was organizing, making sure that he was following up with them, setting goals for them, just as on the same level. So he was already acting like a leader. And that's how he was the obvious choice. I didn't have to look too deep. He was already showing me that he's the guy.
Yeah, and you already had it mapped out of what the skills are that are required to be excellent at that next thing. So you
Right.
already knew what to look for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, a great salesperson is a great salesperson, and I've hired many of them. I've had people that came from, they were selling, not what are they called? Not rental units, where you get onto these
Timeshares.
timeshares. There you go.
Oh,
Thank
I was
you,
gonna
thank
say,
you.
don't say the knives. Don't say the
No,
knives.
not the knives. No, the door-to-door salesman selling knives. No,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
selling timeshares. I hired people that sold timeshares. Amazing salespeople, very friendly, and they knew how to be just aggressive enough, but not too much at the same time to turn customers away. But they weren't great leaders,
Yeah.
and you would see that because they just did not play well with others. Sometimes your best salesperson, that's all they're going to be, and they're happy making their money, but they don't lead teams very well because inherently they like to sell. That's what they're good at.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's lots to unpack here, and we could go super deep on staffing. And we didn't even get into like, hey, when do I know when to start having back office staff, right? When do I need like the people who aren't at the site? We'll save that for another day, for another conversation around how do you grow and scale once you've got one or two figured out. But I do have one more question for you guys, and you each have to answer this, and you can't say the same answer. That's the deal. All right. So
Okay, got it.
I'm just curious, in the last maybe 6 months or so, what's one thing that you've maybe kind of recognized or seen or thought about that is making a difference for you? So maybe like a small change you've made in the last 6 months that is changing either the way you work or the way you show up every day. Can be personal, can be professional.
One thing in the last 6 months that is changing the way that I operate.
Yep.
I got one,
Personally
but we're
or
not
professionally?
sponsored by him. I won't say the name, but hey, within the last 6 months, I ran into this device that basically acts as a voice recorder or an audio transcriber. So it picks up the vibrations from the phone. So it can either pick up your phone calls and then
Oh, yeah.
surmise that transcript and just give you the cliff notes if you ever have to go back, or it can be used as like almost a secret shop device where it's on the back of my phone and people really can't see, and then it'll transcribe and record all that stuff too. So it'll do it in all different ways. It's been an invaluable tool. So instead of walking a property and taking 10,000 notes or in my phone typing them to go type them later or email them to myself, it's doing it all for me.
That's pretty slick. Yeah. Work
Well,
smarter,
okay.
not harder.
Yeah, work smarter, not
Try.
harder. Yeah, that was a good one. One thing in the last 6 months. Can it be an experience?
It can
That
be
is-
anything you want, Francois.
Oh, okay, got it. I just want to clarify.
You could tell me that you've started making your bed, and that's changing your life. if
No,
you
it's
want.
not that. I'll tell you, I would say my daughter, and seeing her grow up, she's young, and seeing her start to walk and move has changed how I see the world and see problems, see issues, and it's made things. It gives you clarity. It gives you more focus and things, and realizing where things are real issues versus not. And I see that just because seeing my daughter growing and developing, it gives me perspective. So that has changed how I've operated in the last 6 months.
I love that. Francois, is this your first child?
Yes.
So you're gonna get a little softer, my friend.
That's already
So
happened.
I've got two daughters and a son, and man, I remember distinctly after I had my first daughter, I was running on the treadmill one day, and a commercial came on, and no joke, like it just hit different, and here I am crying on the treadmill, like trying to run. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so emotional. So you've got that to look forward to, my friend.
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
different. Yeah, it's different. It's a new thing every single day, but I love it. So that's my
Dude,
one
I
thing.
love that for you. Jordan, I'm gonna have to figure out what that device is. We won't say it here.
Yeah, not yet. Not until we get ink
yeah.
signed.
Yeah, if you're listening and you want to know what that is, you're gonna have to reach out to us. Sorry, that's just how it goes. But guys, thanks so much for spending some time kind of diving in on staffing with me, and we'll have to do this again real soon.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks again.
Awesome. Friends, if you're watching or listening, make sure you subscribe, like, share, do all the things you know you're supposed to do. And if you've got a problem you want solved, reach out. Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can get you to the right people and the right resources. Last thing for you, this is the most important thing. Go out there today and tell somebody about the impact they're having on your life. If we wait too long to do that, let them know today. It's going to make a big difference in their life, and it's going to make you feel pretty good too. All right, friends, we'll see you next time.